Man, so it ends so abruptly on that song, man. I love it though. I love it. Hey, welcome to the Black Man Unfiltered Network. So we're gonna wait for some folks to come in here, but so now it's just me and you, me talking to myself or the screen until some folks show up, which is cool. Today, and everybody could catch up when they come in. You see the title. We're gonna be talking about parental alienation. And I don't know why I have trouble with the word, and its harmful effects on society. But it has a lot of tentacles to this, and it should be interesting conversation. So when people come in here, we can have folks come up on the chat, and we could talk about it because, and I have some stats for you because luckily I was able to capture Medium Man the other day, and he goes through some of these very stats that everybody needs to hear. I think people need to hear them more than once. And when we talk about alienation, we're talking about fathers, for the most part, not in the lives of their kids. And, you know, though it's not the majority of them, let's just say black men, because it's an issue throughout all society, but we're talking about black folks here. It's not a big chunk, but it's big enough to have an impact on what's left of the black community. And that's the real key, isn't it? You know, so it doesn't have to have a lot of bad apples to spoil a whole bunch, but it's enough to make a big, tremendous difference and carry on generational curses. Hey, Milani, how you doing? Welcome aboard. I appreciate you coming in. And you see the title. We're talking parental alienation. And yeah, how you doing? So as people come in, we'll talk about. I have some videos for everybody, and some of those videos are pretty good. So I try to step through the videos in order of how we're going to be talking. First we're going to talk some numbers. Then we're going to talk some myths about the parental alienation. And I don't know why I'm having trouble with that. And we have an example, a court case. And it's not too long, but I'm gonna ask you a question after that court case, and then we have some solutions. So we'll take you through the whole gambit of things, and this way we're not leaving people hanging. If you're a person who's been alienated, you know, what can you do about it? And one of the things I found out when I was researching this thing, and a little bit more than the cocktail knowledge I already have, because I have some real world experiences, not myself, but with people in my family. The credible, people who study this stuff, they are very, they try to take great pains without just blaming it on one sex or on the other, one gender or the other. I mean, we all know, and everybody says that females and women are the biggest perpetrators, but a lot of that is because they have the kids the most, okay? And we also know that fathers, the CDC says fathers are usually great with their children. So there are some examples where a father would alienate the kids from the mother, but it's really not that prevalent at all. So, essentially it's going to sound like we're just picking on the ladies. So, which is one of those kind of things. But as we get going, we'll see that the analysts and the people, the psychologists and those people try to be fair and just talk about the subject without pointing fingers. And I agree with that approach, by the way, because when we get to the solutions for a man who's been alienated or a woman who's been alienated are pretty much the same. You just got to be prepared to fight your battles and know the law in your individual state. And that's the key. These things vary from state to state. The way you approach the situation is going to be different in every state. There might be some similarities, but you can't assume that what works in one state is going to work in another. So from that standpoint, you just got to educate yourself if you find yourself in that situation. And one of the things I want to say is when we look at that if we had a pie chart and we talked about, the situation of dads not being in the kids' lives, that you could pretty much put it in like four big categories. One, there's a big category of men who don't have any kids. And then there's a category of men who take care of their children, whether they're married or not. And that's a big chunk. So when you add the men who don't have kids and the men who take care of their kids, that's almost around 80%. You know what I'm saying? So when we talk about deadbeat dads and dads who are alienated, we're talking about a smaller percentage of men, and that could even be broken up. Okay. And one of the things I like to say when we talk about dads not being in their kids' life, and here's some a further division I think people will recognize. Let's talk about the deadbeat dad for a second. Hey, Paul Bennett, how you doing? Let's talk about the deadbeat dad for a second. There's two categories of deadbeat dad, by the way. There's probably more, but let me just talk about the two big chunks. Just a deadbeat dad who had a one-night stand or a few flings with a chick and gets her pregnant, but he doesn't want the baby at all. He doesn't care whether she's pregnant. He don't want to know her. He don't want to know the kid. He ain't paying no child support if he's working or not. He don't care. And so that's the same kind of guy who's pretty much like the woman who doesn't want the baby, but she has recourse. She can go to a center and have it taken care of. She can delete the kid. The fact is that he can't delete the kid, but he would like to just as much as she did, but he doesn't have any say. And this is a case where women actually do have more rights than men. And I don't think that's fair, but that's it. A man can't get a financial deletion, for lack of a better word. And so that guy's going to be a deadbeat no matter how much you shame him, no matter how much you push him, no matter how much he's not going to want to do anything with that kid. So that's one category of deadbeat. Then there's another one we call deadbeats, but this is the guy who pays child support. He don't like the chick, she don't like him, or even if they like each other, he pays child support, but he actually wants to move on. You know, he doesn't really, want to take care of the kids, but his check comes every single month through the proper channels, through the proper system. His check is coming through, and but that's all he wants to do. If he has 21 years stint, he's going to pay child support on time, every time for 21 years, leave him alone. And I really don't want to get to know the kid, blah, blah, blah. You could call him a deadbeat, but at least he's paying. But then the bigger chunk of guys, and this is just my estimation, because when I looked at a research paper, and I'll go through that, there's a group of guys who are alienated. And that group is bigger than all of the other two deadbeat group I'm talking about. They say that 19% of the alienated fathers come from the Black community. They also say that women are twice as much, I think it's more than that, likely to alienate the father than the other way around. So if as being only 13% of the population, but 19% of the men who are alienated are Black, that's an issue, right? And those guys are the ones who want to be in their kids' lives, who are fighting as best they can or paying child support. They want to know their sons. They want to know their daughters. They want to be close to their kids as best they can, even though they're living outside of the house. And those guys are getting screwed over big time, and nobody talks about it. So here I am, the baby boomer, who has all this shit in my head that I want to just go ahead and release to all of you guys, because I think it's a big issue. And so let's kind of backtrack a little bit. So what is parental alienation? Okay, one, they call it a theory that one parent manipulates the child into turning against the other parent. I don't know why they call it a theory. It's not a theory. But hello, Catilia, Hunting Wisdom. Welcome aboard, Paul Bennett. Hey, how you guys doing? I'm glad you're in the chat. And listen, I'm not going to stay, I don't need to be up here all by myself. Anybody has some real world experiences that they want to talk about, don't hesitate. You could come on up. We could watch some of these videos together and all that, because I'll have some questions after each video. So there's also this thing called the parental alienation syndrome. And it's a little bit more hard hitting. It says it develops in children who come to hate, fear, or reject the targeted parent as someone unworthy of having a relationship from them or with them. So there's a whole syndrome of parental alienation. And so in order for the psychologists and all those kind of guys, how they like to come up with syndromes. So here we got a syndrome, and it's a big deal. But one of the things I want to do is we got to talk numbers, right? Because how big is this situation, right? And Medium Man was on a channel yesterday. Hey, Take Heed, how you doing? Medium Man was on a channel yesterday, and I just happened to be watching. Black Man Unfiltered was on there, and the piece of they had a big full-length conversation, but a piece of the conversation came down to black men and their relationship with their kids. And if any of you guys know Medium Man, he's Mr. Stats. I mean, they say if you want to be a great content creator, find a niche and own it. He damn sure owns that niche. So before we pay that, one of the things I wanted to say, because he goes to some conclusions. So we got a few people in here. So BMU, if you want to play that clip that starts at 205, whatever, we could play that clip because I want to talk a little bit of numbers. If you're back there. Anyway, so just let me just keep rattling at the jib while we're waiting. So like I said, he's going to come to some
minority. Just did the research. Now what Black men
go ahead.
The minority. And that's because it's conditioning. That's where the education comes in, and all these conversations could be stopped if we just did the research. Now, what Black Man Unfiltered said is absolutely true. There's a doctor that did the study in regards to child's being not the father. I did a video on it. Out of the men that was tested, 30% of them came back as not the father. And that was only a small percentage of men that were tested. And you have to remember, in regards to child's being not the father, I did a video on it. We stopped it. We just did the research. Now, what Black Man Unfiltered said is absolutely true. There's a doctor that did the study in regards to child's being not the father. I did a video on it. Out of the men that was tested, 30% of them came back as not the father. And that was only a small percentage of men that were tested. And you have to remember, every man does not get a DNA test. So only the men who request a DNA test, 30% came back not the father. So just extrapolate that out to the total population. If they made it mandatory for it to be DNA tests at at birth, you know how many men would not be the father? That's pretty crazy, right? So let's start there. Now let's go to Black fatherhood. First, we have to understand that 54% of Black men have never fathered children. And this is not a Black man thing. Across history, only 40% of men have ever fathered children. So if 54% of Black men have never fathered children, that leaves 46% who have. It has already been proven that Black men are the most involved fathers than any other race of men. And that's just not from Black men. That's from Black women. Black women did the study in 2018, and they proved that Black men are the most involved. So if you take 46% and let's just use 23.5% of those men are in their child's lives and they're happy with the child custody, then that leaves what? Almost 80% of Black men either don't have children or they're in their children's lives. So what you're discussing is the leftover 23% that may be deadbeat fathers, right? And then you have to start pulling the layers away from that. What about the mothers that don't allow their parent or their fathers to see their children? And then you got to keep pulling the layers back to get to the overarching point. Now let's go to the lead attorney's video. He just explained, and he goes on to further explain it. This dude, 20-year attorney, right? And I did the research just so I could be clear before I did the video on what he said. He's basically saying that the reason why lawyers don't take those cases is because the woman has to be the worst of the worst in order for the man to win. If she's not, then you're simply paying the attorney. He's going to take your money. If he's a bad attorney, he's going to take that $80,000, that $115,000, pocket it, and put his kids through private school because he knows that you will not win unless that mother is on drugs. She has abandoned the kids. She's a degenerate. She's been arrested. that's when the lawyer will say, no, we're taking this to court because we actually have a case to win. So that's why when you see the numbers at 90% of fathers being awarded custody when they fight, is because the only cases that go to trial are the ones that the lawyers can win, right? So when we talk about Black fatherhood, I don't understand why the Black community goes to the negative first instead of pointing out the positive. And then when we point out the positive, it's like, well, I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about all the other people that I talk to or all the other people that I see on social media. So that's the issue. We have to stop this social conditioning by looking at the Black men as their degenerates and not being there for their fathers. What we're talking about in regards to child custody and fighting is the minority. And also another point, women expose themselves when they put how much they get in child support. Because if you tell me on social media that you're only getting $20, you know what that tells me? That means that the father or the man that you had children with, he has other kids. That custody is split between the children. So if you're only getting $20, then you absolutely got pregnant by a man who is fathering multiple kids. Because remember, 61% of Black women have mothered children. Only 46% of Black men have fathered children. And also between 2015 to 2019, Black women had 1 million more children than Black men. Where does those children come from? They come from that small minority of Black men and other races of men. So when you talk about this, let's extrapolate that out to all men, because 1 million more kids than your male counterparts, that says something. So we got to stop this narrative that Black men are just struggling to pay child support and things of that nature. The median child support payments is like somewhere between $500, and all Black men aren't even on child support. If you look at the statistics for each state, they break it down specifically. You have to, when I did my live stream on this, I took 50 states, including Hawaii, and averaged it out. And it comes out to that, and all men aren't on child support. So I understand the passion. I get it. But at some point, we got to stop. We got to start focusing on the positive and how many Black men are in their children's lives. We got to stop this, man.
All right. So listen, the question is Media Man on point? And he is. The only thing I would say, because you got to look at the context of his conversation yesterday and the context of the conversation here. He's absolutely correct. That is the minority of men. But let's just say if 80% of the men, 54 of which are not having any kids and the rest are good dads, then in that small pocket of men who are either alienated or deadbeats, that's a statistically significant amount of people and children, both men and women, or boys and girls, who are being hurt by their parents. And that impacts whatever's left of our Black community. That's significant, and it impacts us. And if I was looking to improve the community, I would not look in the 80% or the men who don't have kids or the men who are great fathers. Well, how do we improve? Is changing the situation or trying to make better the situation where the problems lie, right? So that's the key. So the purposes of this conversation is not to just say, the whole community is messed up because a smaller percentage of men are either alienated or deadbeats. It's really because that's where our problems lie, right? That's where that needs to be addressed, that needs to be fixed. And if we can't fix it, the next best thing is to understand it, right? Is to understand what's going on, right? And have commentary on what's going on, because that's the first thing of trying to get past go, is understanding that you have a problem and where those problems lie. And that's what we're talking about in terms of family relationship. I mean, just think about what happens to a boy, what happens to a girl when their fathers are outside of their lives. And we don't have to go through all the statistics. It's there. I don't have to show research and statistics. We're living it. If you live in the inner city communities or anywhere on the outskirts and you watch the kind of news that you need to watch, you absolutely know what's going on, right? So we don't have to rehearse that or rehash that particular shit. It's detrimental to everybody, right? Kids without rudderless kids because of their parents is a bad thing, man. It's a bad deal. It's generational curses Some people don't believe in generational wealth the way we define it, but damn sure there's no argument that generational curses get passed down. You know, so I see Catelia says an international problem as well. You know, so it's a problem everywhere. The fact is, hey, embrace the grace. The fact is that all of the problems, the societal problems, the microscope could be put on the Black community and you could see it manifests itself very easy, right? Because it seems like it starts in our community and spreads, right? And even if that's not true, the impacts on our community is worse than almost everywhere else, right? It just, if it's not true, it damn sure seems like it's true, right? We're the most unmarried. We have the biggest and the toughest gender war going on. We got a lot of shit to take care of. And, you know, so I'm not here to go through that, but let's just talk a little bit about what the topic is. And, you know, the next video I have, and if you have that queued up, BMU, the one on the 10 myths, I think that's something that everybody could look at. So now that we know what parental alienation is, we know the numbers, let's look at some of the myths that people might have or misconceptions. And I got another short video that goes through those 10. It's not really long. It's like 3.5 minutes long, maybe 4. And if we could play that one, that'll be cool. And anybody wants to come up.
This video will examine 10 as presented by Dr. Richard Warshak. Number 1, children never unreasonably reject the parent with whom they spend the most time. While it may seem reasonable that a parent who spends the most time with the child is protected from alienation, this is not consistent with research or clinical experience. Number 2, children never unreasonably reject mothers. This suggests that anytime a child rejects a mother, it must be the mother's fault. Not only does this belief harm mothers who have been alienated from their children, but it's not consistent with research and clinical experience. Number 3, each parent contributes equally to a child's alienation. A therapist might wrongly think, when both parents are mad at me, I did a good job. This belief can make professionals feel that they are being fair and unbiased, but this idea is not consistent with research and clinical experience. Number 4, alienation is a child's transient, short-lived response to the parent's separation. There are 2 problems with this idea. The first is that alienated children don't always see the light and reestablish a relationship with rejected parent. And the second is that any exposure to parental alienation strategies can be harmful to children. Number 5, rejecting a parent is a short-term, healthy coping mechanism. There's no evidence that allowing a child to reject a parent is helpful, and there's plenty of evidence that the alienation can become entrenched over time and even worsen if not addressed. Also, some alienated children admit later that they wanted the rejected parent to keep fighting for them. Number 6, young children living with an alienating parent need no intervention. It's actually the case that rapid intervention with alienation at the beginning is better, more effective, and less invasive than waiting until the problem has progressed and everyone has dug their heels in. Number 7, alienated adolescents' stated preferences should dominate custody decisions. All best interests of the child laws allow for a child's preference once the child is of a certain age to be a factor when judges make custody decisions. However, despite having more advanced cognitive capacities compared to younger children, teens are still susceptible to undue influence and impulsivity.
Think peer pressure.
The truth is, most states include other factors such as quality of parenting and continuity of schooling, which should not be overlooked even when the child is a teenager. Number 8, children who appear to function well outside the family need no intervention. Irrationally rejecting a parent is an important psychological concern that shouldn't be overlooked no matter how well the child is doing academically, socially, or otherwise. No one would say that a child who is suicidal, for example, but doing well in school shouldn't be treated. Number 9, severely alienated children are best treated with traditional therapy techniques while living primarily with their favorite parent. There are many reasons why traditional therapy doesn't work with alienated children, including that the favorite parent can interfere with treatment. Number 10, separating children from an alienating parent is traumatic. No peer review study has documented harm to severely alienated children from the reversal of custody. Reliance on these false beliefs harm children and families by supporting choices that are unlikely to address.
Yeah, that's it. Hey, well, so listen, I think that was a good video. Matter of fact, all the videos that we're using here, on my channel, I have a short version of this. It's not live, it's a video of the same title. And I have a link to each one of those videos in my description, so you can go there. And that's my plug for my channel for you guys to go at least look at my channel from time to time. But anyway, the point is that you can go look at this at your leisure. Now, the one thing he didn't say was a myth is that women are the most at fault. He didn't say that was a myth. But you know what? We don't need to be a big deal of that, because the solutions and the problems to parental alienation is probably equivalent for both. It's not good for either one of the parents to do it. And the reason why it comes down on women the most, the biggest reason, is because you'll have the kids the most. You'll have the kids the most. It's as simple as that. And, you guys could be quite catty. I swear to God. So we can't get past that. So, who's online? Anybody up there? Who's up there?
Hi, how are you?
Hello.
Thank you for letting me up. This is one of my favorite topics, so excuse me for being excited. But the the other thing we have to look at is also women kind of sometimes because it's a beautiful thing to be a woman, and we think that motherhood goes along with being a woman, but it doesn't always happen that way. And so you have women who aren't meant to be mothers, and then they use their children as accessories, almost like purses. Even you know how we have that, like, well, why would you keep on having 5 or 6 and back to back if you already know you messed up a few? It's because they enjoy that attention part during the pregnancy. But when the real work gets here, meaning you have to be up at night breastfeeding, and it's not even work. It's just it's just like the second part of nature. I don't even want to call it work, but it's just something to, maybe consider that psychological aspect of it, that it's in a woman who's pregnant, she's usually, more safe and catered to and things of that nature. Yeah. But you don't get that anymore. After you only get, I guess my thing is that's temporary, which is why they have to keep revisiting that feeling over and over again at times.
That makes sense. I mean, tell me your name again. It didn't pop up for me.
Oh, A Piece of My Mind.
Oh, okay. All right. Welcome aboard. Thanks for coming up. I appreciate that. No, that's a good insight. I mean, listen, so you have any real world experiences with this, or, just what you observed?
No, I do. I had a maternal and infant health program, and that program was here I don't want to say where I'm from, but it was to promote healthy birth outcomes and decrease the infant mortality rate. And also, just make sure that the babies were, progressing and developing as they should, and also keeping the family together. So meeting like those social determinant of health needs. So transportation, housing, mental health, food, and other things that could possibly be barriers. And even then, it still wasn't enough, because some people just, and I think, my door closed. Some people need to admit that they don't want to be parents. And let me tell you, being a mother or a father, it's a blessing, not a burden.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But, you said something important there, right? Because there's conditions that make it a blessing, and there's conditions that make it a burden. And, usually people, when they say, marry before you carry, I very rarely see people who've done it, even if the kids planned or not planned in the marriage, call it a burden.
I saw a hot son just based on the fact that
who's this, Simon?
Yeah, this is Simon Hectic. So shout out to Black Man Unfiltered Network. He enables this great conversation, this great man to be on the platform, to be able to give us some grace. So parental alienation, what's your stance on that?
For me personally, I think it's one, it's a problem. It's a problem, and I think it's it's not avoidable the way we're doing things in terms of how we bringing kids into the world. I think that we are out of order. And I think that leads to, even though it's a small percentage compared to the guys who want to be good dads, it's the fact that we're out of order that makes that happen for the most part. I believe that. I think that has a direct impact on the fact that we have alienated fathers. When we have alienated relationships, it goes to show that one parent or the other is going to be alienated.
And not only
Especially
that someone is selfish, because forget how we feel as adults, like we don't get to take away from the children's experience. Like, you know what, suck it up and allow them to have the best life possible.
Right. So I don't know if that answers your question. I think, I think there's some really direct causes for it. And it will, what, even in a marriage, right, you'll have a percentage of divorces that might end up that way, but that's that's not the main problem with the situation that we have. It's the way we have kids and the way our relationships and having kids out of wedlock that exacerbates the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think we're having children frivolously or some shit like that?
Yes. Yes.
Because when you ask somebody to practice abstinence, they act like it's the craziest thing in the world.
Yeah, but Simon, go ahead and pull that thread. Where are you going with that? You don't think that we're having kids frivolously? Not when I say we, the too many people.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think a lot of people actually pay attention to their partners, potential husbands or wives. Like, they don't really get deep intimate with them, like, and try to figure out what is actually going to happen. Potentially, especially when you're having children, like it takes a lot, and if you're just trying to get through life, let's try and work out how much it costs to just raise a child. Okay. Realistically, whether you're a man or a woman, you're not really in that position, and this is why people struggle, and this is why we have the struggle conversation around having children. So, are you going to actually choose to have a child with someone that is actually privileged enough to have a child with you, or are you going to have a child with somebody that is not, but you're going to try and work it out?
Well, let's kind of examine that, right? If we look at let's kind of put it in perspective. Most of the time when we're having sex, children ain't a part of that, right? There's just millions of encounters between men and women that don't result in children. And sometimes I'm telling you that when you have a casual girlfriend and or just a person, I don't know how many kids get born on a one night stand, but let's just say you have a situationship going on and you see this girl often. It depends on what kind of person she is and you. But if you're raw dogging each other, chances are you're going to start losing count of her. She's going to lose count of her ovulation cycle. And as a man, you probably don't even give a shit, right? And so all of a sudden, you hit that time period where she's fertile as hell. She might not even know it, because I'm not so sure too many women really pay attention to that the way they should. And so she gets
That's
pregnant.
where you be wrong.
Oh, so they know.
Time stuff like that and then pretend,
okay, yeah,
I didn't know.
Go ahead.
No, that's where you're wrong. There are apps. There's so many different things, and we're so lucky to have so many different tools to educate us on nurse, like just anything, even the maternal infant health program that I was referring to. There was also a registered nurse and dietitian that would even go out to the home and educate on the reproductive health and things of that nature, how to breastfeed. We provided a breastfeeding pump, and
I have a question for you, a peace of mind. I have a question for you on that point. So are you telling me that, not just on these YouTube streets, you're saying that the women are purposely having kids by Pookie and Ray Rays because they understand their ovulation? I know they do, but do they really take that good?
I mean, aren't we grown? Don't you know what's going to happen if you?
No, not what I'm saying. I do know they should know what happens, but you're saying they have more attention. They know. You know what? That makes sense. They actually do.
I've experienced. I'm a woman. I've experienced. I think I'm pregnant, and then well, you're not pregnant this month. So, but then 2 months later,
so
you
are. So I'm being naive.
I'm
being naive.
Well, don't be naive.
No. But my position was more naive. I was giving women more credit. I was giving them an excuse. They actually, you know what?
Well, you're just giving them more dick. What the fuck are you talking about, bro?
No.
Well,
Based on
because
what she just said, I understand what you just said. I'll never say that again because women absolutely don't know what's going on with their bodies for the most part.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I think women really do understand more than men because they have a cycle. So
Right.
we don't actually have to think about that shit. Like we just
Yeah.
wake up in the morning and we can just do what the fuck we want. Like
That's too many of us.
at the end of,
but it's a
it's
woman's
like
job to know her body. If she can't know her body, how can she get through a healthy pregnancy, let alone a healthy childhood?
Nah, I'm with you. No
I think,
argument.
yeah, but I agree with you, and I think that's what makes women nurturing because you have to pay attention like that, and that's your innate responsibility, like with your children. In a sense, I think that's what God blessed you with because, like, men have a kind of like a different role, and it is what it is. And I
Yeah.
know you're gonna be on my neck about it, but yeah, go on.
Now you also have to consider there's willful ignorance, and that way that allows someone to.
You know what, man? You could BFU for me, Mr. Pat. You know how trouble not to get the pen, try to lose a pen or a name. He always just pulls me back in and shit, man.
No, but I think that's a real thing. I think that's why women have cycles, like because
yeah.
at the end of the day, it's a trigger point. Do you get what I'm
So
saying?
yeah,
But
no,
the
it is.
reproductive cycle is through the entire month. So there are things that happen throughout the month with the body during that time.
Gotcha. Hey, listen, I got another video, right, of a court case. It's not that long. Of a lady and a man going through the judge, and the judge recognizes what's going on. It's pretty interesting. And I want everybody to think that whether you think that I'll ask you a question, whether you think the judge was fair with both parents. So whenever you're ready, go ahead.
I've seen over and over again what I believe to be absolutely true. Mr. Cook dearly loves his children. If that were the case, he'd have given up a long time ago, given the many obstacles that Ms. Spar has thrown in the way over the years, trying to interfere with Mr. Cook having a reasonable parental relationship with his children. And frankly, what I'm seeing is direct parental alienation by Ms. Spar. She is instilling fear in her children. She is telling them things that they should never need to hear. She is instilling fear in them. And she's done damage as a result of that. Kids don't need to hear one parent trashing the other. And Mr. Cook, you're guilty of that. You're guilty of trashing their mother to them. She's guilty of trashing you to them. All it does is create harm. And it's been successful.
Can we stop right there really fast?
Yeah, stop.
Isabel has been.
Yeah, hold up, BMU, hold it up. Go ahead.
So what happens is, again, and this is why it's always important for a child to stay in a child's place, because children start feeling like they have to choose between one of the parents, and they still have vulnerable minds, and so that's really like we have to always meet them on their level. But when that happens, it's number one, it's heartbreaking for them, but it does put them in a position psychologically as children, and we should be mindful of that as the parents and adults. The auntie, because I've experienced. So I'm saying that because I've experienced it myself. You growing up around the family and everybody may be talking about your mom or something like that, and it's like that's never okay, because it does change that kid's perspective, and then they acted funny around the other parent or something. And what if it's, what if it's wrong? Like, what, you don't get to. And I'm saying that because the other thing is, my parents are no longer here, and regardless of what anybody said about them, like when they came to their end of time, when they were making their transition, I was the most happy to be there with them and for them, because of their character. And sometimes people leave out the good things. So look, it was a blessing that I could see my parents for what they were, despite their circumstances. But it is something that we just have to be mindful of, especially nowadays, because kids are very impressionable, and they have so many different means of access and just things to impact their minds and way of thinking. And also children who are created out of love, and kids who are created out of survival, they move differently in this world. You can see it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, I agree with that 100%. All right, so let's go ahead, continue.
Yep, sorry.
I think
as alienated as I've seen a child become, and Chloe's rapidly on the way to being that herself. It's just plainly wrong. So how do we fix it at this point? Clearly, these girls have been alienated against Mr. Cook. They believe that he's a danger to them, but they don't believe that based on truth. They believe that based upon all of the fear that their mother has instilled in them. I don't doubt that Mr. Cook loses his cool on occasion and raises his voice, but he's not a danger to either one of these children. He never has been. He never will be. The danger is what mom is doing. Ma'am, if you unmute your phone again, I am going to kick you out of this hearing. Do not do it. Is that clear? So how do we get off this point and get to some semblance of a reasonable parenting time schedule and a reasonable relationship for Mr. Cook with his children? What I want to do, the referral to the healing place to Dr. Shannon Louder, absolutely, I wanted it followed up on. I want counseling set up for both of the girls through Dr. Louder's office. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to schedule, and Mr. Cook, you're not going to like this, but give it time. There's a goal in mind. I am going to order that a healing place supervise a couple of visits.
Be right back.
I want them to see what I believe to be the case, that these girls have no reason to fear you other than what mom has put into their heads. And she's been hard at work doing that. Every chance she gets, she poisons these girls towards you, Mr. Cook, every time. So the first step we're going to do, I want there to be 2 supervised visits with each daughter separately. I do not want them together. They need to be separately. After those 2 visits, I want the parenting time supervisor at a healing place to give the court a report as to how those visits went. I also want the girls immediately enrolled in counseling through whoever it is Dr. Louder assigns from the healing place so that they can start that process. I want the person who's doing the therapy to involve both parents at a time and under such circumstances as the therapist sees fit. I anticipate going to a far more regular parenting time schedule. Part of the problem here is the extent to which these girls have been withheld from Mr. Cook. And while they're being withheld, they're being fed lies by their mother, exaggerations, just over the top, outright parental alienation. So I am going to get busy to write this order. I'm going to warn you, Ms. Spar, each time the child doesn't go to a visit, is going to cost you a day in jail. And I'm going to stand behind that. And make sure your girls know if they're telling you, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. Honey, if you don't go, mama's going to have to go to jail. You make sure they know that because it's going to happen. All right. That concludes our hearing. You'll be getting a written order.
Wow, man, that's deep. Hey, Lou, if you want to share, man, you can if you want to. And that was a deep thing right there.
No, but that's real. Like,
oh yeah, I know.
I went through that. Like, I spent 2 years in court, and you know, just dealing with these judges and everyone that comes up against you, and the you know, it's wild. It's really wild. So I totally got that clip, and thank you for playing it, because yeah, I can only reflect right now. Do you get what I'm saying?
That's cool.
You know, I got my daughter in my house, like you know, but for me to get her, it was just wild. It was like everything was up against me, and I ain't even like being like sympathetic or anything. I had to be hard cased. I had to learn. I had to understand like what the court system is. And I do hear like a lot of brothers out here that are struggling and they're doing their thing and going through that same thing. But it's just like what I'd say to them is just please just reach out to brothers that understand what you're talking about, because every little helps. You get what I'm saying? I look, whatever she was going through at that point in time was whatever she was going through. But the fact of the matter is, she was advised. You get what I'm saying? Like, she had lawyers, practitioners, this, that, whatnot, and that just made her think a certain type of way. So, you know, when it came down to it, realistically, it wasn't in her best interest to have our child, and that's the only reason why I'm a single father. Because if it was in her best interest to have the child, she'll be a single mother. And this is what we don't talk about. There's nothing wrong with being a single mother, as long as you're a good single mother. But salute to you, sir. I got up.
All right, man. Good. Thanks for sharing it. I'll
Yo.
tell you. Well, let me ask you a question before you go. You think the judge was fair?
I just think most judges are biased.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking that question with this particular judge.
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is that's just my area, so I know they're biased, and that's why they get into the job. It's like police officers, fire officers. Like, we are now in a new age, and we need to recognize this. Like, just because you got a title doesn't entitle you to dictate what the people do. And there are some good ones, but majority of the time ain't that thing, because we've been programmed to just go get that thing, and then it enables you to just do whatever you want without even knowing what your state of mind is. So, you know, shout out to Black Man Unfiltered. Thank you very much, sir, for allowing us to have some space. I really appreciate you. My heart goes out to you and your family and everything you've done. You know, this is a really, really good topic. Thank you for having my wife up here as well. And salute to you, sir, for you know, just being I really want to have another conversation with you, because I love OGs. I really respect OGs.
Well, you know, you can find me here every Monday, man.
All right, that's the
every
thing.
Monday at 7.
That's the thing then. Okay,
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, marriage.
I'm gonna come back.
Anyway, you got it. You got it. Hey, thanks for coming up.
All right, I'm
a peace of mind. You still there? Or did she drop it? A peace of mind. You still there? I don't know. Hey, I see Trey in the building. Hey, what's going on? So Trey, did you think he was fair, Trey? What? Yes or no? A-Team, welcome aboard. Hello. No, so I thought the judge was fair. One of the things I thought that was cool was that he even took the time to tell the man that he's not completely innocent. You know, I don't know if he just fired that for effect, but he said, "Listen, you're not, don't get too big, because you're not completely innocent in this situation either." So I thought that was cool. And whether that was just a disarming tactic and all that kind of stuff, but I think that they have this like healing thing that goes on. I don't know if that's a standard practice or not, but I think there's got to be a way to somehow break the bonds, because in my own personal family, I know a relative of mine who's been alienated from his son. He paid child support, and they still ain't together. And he happened to, the mother of the kid absolutely hated him, and he paid child support for 21 years, but the relationship with him and his son is still kind of fractured, So, I'm not going to even go into the details because I don't know all the details that made it that way, but it is that way. And it's a sad thing to see, but that's just the way that is. I think everybody has, if you have a big enough family, you probably experience that kind of stuff too. So it's not fun, and I think these kind of things that the judge, there's not enough judges who get in the middle of this, because I don't think these kind of cases come in front of the judge enough. Just like a media man said, that for the most part, I think that it's easier for a man, not the ones who are alienated, who want to be with their kids, but the guys who are kind of deadbeat anyway, especially the guys who cannot have what I would call a financial deletion, that he doesn't want the kid just as much as a woman doesn't want the kid. Well, a woman has recourse. She goes to the clinic and take care of it. He can't do that, right? If he's around, so those kind of, you can't expect any kind of love or an affection from a man whose baby is being forced on because the woman wants to keep it and he doesn't want to have it. So that's one, like I said before, that's one area where women have more rights than men, and I think that needs to change. In one way or the other. Not that a man should be able to tell a woman what to do with her body, but he shouldn't have to pay if his alienation from the kid is just as much as hers. She has recourse and he doesn't. I think that's not equality. One equality, he should be able to say, you know what, you want the kid? Go ahead and take care of it and leave me alone. But that doesn't exist in our court system. So maybe I don't know if that will fix anything, but maybe it might make a lady say, you know what, if I don't have no help with this kid, maybe I'll just not have it. Or I just might not get pregnant. Not by this bozo. Put 2 rubbers on, goddammit, not just one. Anyway, so that's one of the other things I would say. Anyhow, so listen, I do. Anybody else want to come up and say anything? I mean, fine. Have any opinion? Anything they might want to share with everybody on this topic? I know Lou said he had some. Hey, how you doing, 18? You have something you want to come up and say something? You can. That'd be nice. You can stay in the background if you want to. But anyway, I know Lou said he might have some experience with this, but I know it's hard sharing that stuff personally. And especially if the outcomes weren't favorable. And I just think that if we as a black, I say black community, but I don't really believe we have communities anymore. I like to say what's left of the black community, whatever that might look like. I think this is an area that if we can improve in that area where there's more fathers with those wayward kids, and not stepfathers, I mean real biological fathers in their lives, especially when they want to be, I think we could at least begin to reduce, not necessarily reverse, but we could reduce the kids growing up, the men growing up to be dangerous and even deadly, and the women growing up to just repeating what their mothers and their grandmothers have done. I think that makes a big, big, big difference. And I don't think I'm not. It's not a revelation by me saying it. I think we all know that that's true. Anyway, so I do have a video where there might be some solutions to this. So there's a man who went through. He actually did jail time because he was falsely accused by the mother of his children for doing things, and he had to fight. And he created a whole group to talk about how men and women, because he'll say that himself, can actually study the laws in their specific state and put the right things in place to fight this kind of alienation. And I thought it was pretty good. So you got the clips. I got 3 clips. You could play the first clip of that, BMU. Just
one of the things that I want to tell at least men out there, but also women who are watching this who want to learn how to protect their kids, or women who don't want to make the mistake and abuse your kids by keeping the fathers away, or men, vice versa, all this sort of stuff. Look, the information out there about divorce and custody, especially for men, has been so harmful. I'm super hypercritical of it. I've been critical of it since 2016, about the red pill, about men's rights activists, about all these different groups. And the reason for that is I have lost bigger than most of you guys in terms of false abuse claims. I also came back to beat it. I learned how the courts worked for I don't know how many years, at least since I've seen the red pill really take off. So I get it. The court systems are unfair. They do not treat things in a favorable way towards men. But if you know what to do, and if you're a man, and you want to learn how to fight, you need to learn how to fight. I did it. I teach guys over and over again in my courses. This year alone in 2023, we just had a guy beat 3 charges because he put in the work. He did the right things. It could have gone wrong in so many ways. He was prepared in all the different variables of how judges take it, other lawyers take it, witness testimonies, flaw things, judges cutting out different pieces of evidence. When you learn how to prepare yourself, when you learn how to go into a courtroom properly, you can beat false claims. You can beat this horrific thing of your kids being coached, lied to, parental alienation, and so on. And I really want to talk about it. What I've seen from the red pill, what I've seen from men's rights is horrific. Never going into a courtroom and learning how they work, never interviewing lawyers, never learning the system, never working with men on their cases, but only teaching them how to be victims, how to say it doesn't work and give up. I get it. It's stacked against you. I got screwed really bad. I didn't see my kids for 5 years. I wore the crown of a false claim of being a child abuser, which is a horrible thing to wear for 8 years. I served a full sentence for that, which wasn't 8 years of jail time. It was a short amount of jail time. It was a ton of community service. It was probation. It was all sorts of trash talking on me and all this sort of stuff. But man, I served it and then I beat it. I want to show you how to do that. And there's proof of it too, which I show all the time. When we get to things like parental alienation, it causes great damage to your kids. So if you're somebody that's talking trash on your spouse, you got to stop.
Yeah, you can stop it there, because I don't want too much longer, because I want to go to the second clip when we get a chance. So what's going on, Trace? So, hey, Trace, so what part of what he's saying is bullshit? I mean, listen, okay. Of course you could come up with something if you're thinking that. But the point really is that I don't like to leave the people hanging. This might not be the solution, but there's got to be some kind of solutions to these situations for people to try to get themselves out of, one way or the other. Some, of course, are going to be better than the others, but it's better than leaving the panel with nothing. You know, that's what I think. Yeah. Oh, you, KP. You know what, man? BMU, you come up here and tell me why it's all bullshit. How about that? Somebody just tell me why it's all bullshit. You know, I know it's costly, and he didn't talk about that, but I do know that. You know, Trey's talking. You know what? That is a solution for men. You could do the Michael Jackson, man. Just pay for your kids and shit. Just pay, even though those not his kids, but just pay a woman, have my kids, get the hell out of here. Let me pay an au pair to help me raise them. You know, that's a solution if you got the money. That is a solution if you had the money. You know, so. But so anyway, since we're in a low period, play this second clip, because he goes into now how he goes about trying to solve the issue. So I just say, the second clip is like his first little step, and then the last clip is his kind of his last step. But if you could play the second clip that I gave you.
Not want the state. You don't want the government to be raising your kids. You especially don't want them to have to decide that you're an unfit parent. So we got to learn how to defend that. So step one, if you're going through this and you have false claims against you, you have to learn how to defend that. How we defend that is we specifically have to understand what the law states. It's not what your aunt says. It's not what you say. It is not what friends and family say. It's not what the overall opinion is. It's not how she lied to you. It is what is actually said, what is actually done. So if you are said to have hit that child, hurt that child in some sort of ways, and that is filed against you, you have to learn how to defend it. So what happens is a lot of people say, well, she's a liar, she did this, and you don't understand. She goes out with other guys, girls, blah, 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 blah. Or he does this, he's an alcoholic, blah, 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 blah. Does that affect your case? Does that defend you? Okay, so first, step one, you have to defend yourself. How do I prove that I did not harm this child? How do I prove that this person is taking away the kids from me? How do I prove that I've made attempts to see my children and he or she has not let me? And then how is that affecting the child? How is that showing good parenting? So we have to start there with proving, disproving, okay? Very, very important. So if we don't start there, we usually gunk up the courts, whoever's in charge of it, whether it's a judge in a hearing or it's through mediation, but most likely this would count for a hearing. We don't want to make it impossible for that judge to understand. Okay, if we make it impossible for that judge to understand, that judge is then put in a point or a place where they have to be reactive. Okay, one side is saying a bunch of stuff. One side is bringing up the wrong witnesses. One side is totally not acknowledging what is on the paper of what this hearing is about. And they're ignoring it. So then the judge has to react. That judge more than likely is going to react with whatever is just going to be safest. The court, both sides, could not determine how to properly present this case because of disorganization. So we're just going to err on the side of caution.
All right, listen, as far as I'm concerned, that have never been through that, he sounds pretty reasonable to me, except he's not telling you how much work it is to be that prepared, how much cost is going to be that prepared. All right. Oh, all right. Yeah. Thank you, 18. Listen, so I think he's onto something. Now, how many people are going to be that disciplined and that prudent and that meticulous in front of the judge? Well, you can't do that without some kind of lawyer. You start talking about lawyers, you start talking about costs. And I understand that there ain't nothing free in this world, and fighting for your rights with your children, that's just never going to be free. So if you're going to spend that money, you better spend it the most prudent way you know how. And that's being prepared. I don't see any other way around it. Now, you might not win, but it's better than going in willy-nilly and shit. I can tell you that much. I helped a friend out. He was going to go, he's going through a divorce, and I didn't help him out. I told him, get a lawyer, but I had to pound that shit in his head. He said, man, I don't want to spend the money on a lawyer. I said, you're going to go into New Jersey courtroom with your wife who wants alimony. She wants all of this shit. You're going to go butt naked to the world. You're going to get your ass kicked. I said, you got to go in there, spend the money, a couple of $1,000 here and there, have a lawyer defend you. And he found a woman lawyer to help him out. He had to do 10 years penance, but it was on a declining scale and it wasn't that bad. So he survived. And his wife was cheating on him too. And that shit didn't matter to the judge, by the way. Not one bit. So I had to talk his ass down off the ledge. Anyway, and that's like I said, it's got to be an individual case. I don't even care how much it costs. It's got to be somebody who's willing to pay it. If you're not willing to pay it, then you're not going to go through it. And this is that simple. So how much it costs is going to be how much time the lawyer has to spend. It's probably a lot of time. So it's a lot of money. So I understand that's why only very few men are going to actually do it. Yeah, so many of these problems with women can be solved with not marrying them. That's just really true. That's unfortunate. It's true like hell. But thank God a guy like me was born when I was born. I got married when I got married. I don't have those problems. So I don't envy all you young people that y'all go through it. But, my daughters do. So, so if I could educate myself a little bit to help them do it, I want to do it. Or they educate me on what it is, to tell you the truth, the other way around. But so if I could ease their landing, I'll do it. Anyway, so we might as well play the third part there, BNU, so we can get all the videos out the way. And then whoever wants to discuss whatever's left, we can do that.
The other things that you got to learn about when you're going into a court case, when you're trying to defend.
That's the right place. Kind of.
These things as well, is that you want to have everything as organized for your attorney as possible. You don't want to lie to them. You don't want them to be blindsided in court. You don't want them to be embarrassed. You want them to be motivated to work on your case. And so because of that, like I said, we chart all this stuff out for you. So if you're a man or a woman, you can look at the links down below. If you want to join the women's group for this, we'll help you chart it out. At the entry level point, we also have a community of people who have huge amounts of experience. Like I said, this year we had a guy just yesterday get 3 things dropped. We had a guy in December who it was the worst of the worst false claims being put against him. Didn't get to see his kids for a huge amount of time. Get all those dropped, reversed, get it that it was admitted that it was coached on the other side, or get a testimony saying from the forensic psychologist to say these different things. Very, very, very powerful stuff. In addition to that, we have guys that get 50-50 in the state of Texas. That's very difficult, but it's in many states. The reason why it's difficult in Texas is it does get awarded, but it has to be agreed upon outside of court. That's difficult because then you usually have to have leverage for a mom to concede to that.
Yeah, I think it went out. Yeah, there you go. Anyway, so that's all my videos for the night. So I just think that, listen, the guy, whether you believe him or not, or whether you think he's be effective or not, it's something for somebody who's going through it to at least research. Like his link is in on my description and stuff like that. Hey, Smitty, what's going on? What's happening? Anybody else got any comments? Anything they want to share? Come on up. We got some time. All right. So listen, everybody's kind of silent tonight, but I know that everybody, if you live in our community, some of this is going on in the family, and things of that nature. And I believe that is there a way out of it? How do we reduce this thing? If it's possible. The first way is that, guys, if you ain't serious about a chick, you need to protect yourself. And like Uncle Rick said, at all times. If you don't think there's no future with a woman, dudes, listen, you can't count on her to have more agency with her body because it means accountability. We can't sit around and say women don't like accountability, and we expect them to take it at the moment of truth. That's just not happening. It's not going to happen. So you got to understand your own consequences. I'm never going to tell a man not to have sex. Don't wait till you have everything together and all that other horse shit. It's just not nature. If you're broke and dusty and somebody wants to give you some butt, you're going to take it. Right? So the point really is that you have to understand the consequences that you're in if you impregnate a woman that you don't want to be with. That's as simple as that. She knows her consequences and she has choices. You don't. You do not. If you get a woman pregnant, your shit's on the hook. If you got a job, you can't run. You really can't, and for 21 years, you're going to be paying out your ass. And if you don't have a relationship with the woman, expect to get your ass kicked. Mentally, just mentally ragdoll. As simple as that. You could be the toughest dude in the whole world, and a woman and a kid being dangled in front of you, it's going to hurt. Especially if you want to be a part of that kid's life and she don't want you to be. So on that one, fellas, listen, you gotta You got to understand the nature of the chicks, man. If a chick wants you to raw dog her, you're going to do it. You know, if most guys are going to do it, 90% of guys are going to do it. You know, you're going to do it. Because first, you're going to be flattered. You're going to be flattered like some asshole because she wants me to raw dog. You're going to do it. You're going to do it. More greater men than you have done it. Let's put it to you that way. It's a rare dude like me who has a permanent goddamn clip saying that it's a big revelation not to do it. You know what I'm saying? So the bottom line is, you know, all of these things could be avoided if you just take responsibility at the point of, and I'm not taking the agency away from the woman, but if she's letting you do it, then she's already abdicated her agency. You know, think about it. When you say to the woman, let me just put the tip in, and she lets you do it, she's abdicating her agency to you. And you, just like being a natural man that you are, you're gonna step right in there. You know, that's our weakness. And they know it. So that doesn't absolve them of their responsibility for their own coochie. But you know, you make them, and you don't mind them abdicating that, you know. So you got to be Aristotle. Yeah, so you really gonna abdicate your womb to me tonight? Are you really gonna do that? Yeah, how many men are gonna say shit like that? Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I think I came close once or twice. But no, I don't have any lost kids out there. No, I don't. And you know what? Now, being an old guy I am, if I did, I'd claim them. Because I don't have to pay child support. Because they would be old as fuck, man. You know, hi, son. Anyway, that's just a joke. Young dollar, there you go. Cross the T's and dot the I's. Listen, we don't have to prolong this, and nobody have anything to say. Thank you, Patelia. I appreciate your support. I you know, you flatter me. You flatter me. And I appreciate your support, especially if I got to hear BMU call me another name. You know, whether with or without him, at least somebody appreciates me on this channel. And so I appreciate you back.
We already have a nigger mayor. We don't need any more nigger big shots.
Oh man, you're so full of shit, PMU, man. You know, that is funny, man. Anyway, so anybody else have anything to say? Because, like I said, I think that I know we have Embrace the Grace coming up later on tonight, which is cool. So we don't have to prolong this one. I think that if y'all want to study this, there's so much information out there on parental alienation. I don't know why I can't say it. I got to fix my teeth or some shit. Anyway, so there's a lot of information out there. So all the links to these videos is on my short form on my channel and things of that nature. I'll think of something for next week, maybe a little bit more fun, maybe not. But these things come to me. I think this was a good one, especially since it's a real issue in our community. And there's a lot of men out there and some women who are really hurting by this thing. And it's actually hurting our children, you know? So we need to fix that. You know, we need to think that, yeah, thanks for Simon coming up. I know Simon from some other panels. So this was one of my better interactions with him. That was great. And peace of mind. Thank you. For peace of mind. I appreciate you coming up and giving us your insights. And BMU, you've been kind of silent tonight. You got anything to add before I go? No?
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
Well, let me tell you, man, all you people out there laughing at Kamala, you better find your cocoon for the Matrix, because she just could win this goddamn election. It's going to be crazy. But you know what? You just got to prepare yourself to be able to survive it. We're going to have dancing clowns and all kinds of shit over there, man. They're going to have probably, you know, all kinds of debauchery going on if she wins. Anyway, so with that, ladies, gentlemen, the chat, I appreciate your support. BMU, thanks for getting those videos up. Get ready for Embrace the Grace. And nobody's on the phone, I don't think. So why don't we just go ahead and end this one and everyone have a good night? I appreciate that.